This is a tier list video to decide who is the best grappler in the UFC. I've got all of the good grapplers in the UFC right now hidden around the perimeter of the screen, and I'll slowly reveal them one by one as this video goes on and place them where they belong on the tier list. There's only room for one in S tier, so that will be saved for the best grappler in the UFC that I'll leave until last. And other than that, A tier is the best, D tier is the worst. However, I should say this. Everyone in this video is going to be good at grappling. These are the best grapplers in the UFC. I'm not putting Darren Till at D tier. Darren Till ain't anywhere near being in this video. Because they're in D tier does not make them bad grapplers. I have to separate them somehow. That's all I'm going to say. There's so many of them. Let's get into it. I made a video like this a couple of years ago and thought I need to make another one because it aged so terribly. People have gotten better at grappling. People have gotten worse at grappling. We've got new fighters in the UFC. People have left the UFC. So let's break it down. Starting with, because this is going to be a long video, let's get straight into it. Brandon Moreno is who we're starting with. I'm putting him in D tier. I'm putting Brandon Moreno in D tier. That's what I'm doing. Brandon Moreno in D tier. He's a good grappler, but at the end of the day, he's a flyweight, and I don't rate flyweight. In case you guys don't know, I think the best grapplers reside in like the welterweight, featherweight, bantamweight, lightweight area, just to keep it vague. And I think it drops off outside of that massively. At middleweight especially, flyweight as well, light heavyweight and heavyweight as well. So I'm going to put Brandon Moreno at D tier. He's still one of the better grapplers in the UFC. I don't think he's the best grappler at flyweight, but he's definitely one of the better grapplers in that division, and he's proven that. So I'm going to put him at D tier. No hard feelings. It isn't a bad thing to be down there. You're just not as good as some of the other elites that we're going to bring out later on in the video. We move on to someone else in this video who is Mateusz Gamrot. This is what I'm talking about. Wrestling at its finest in the UFC. I'm putting him at B tier. That's where he's going. Not quite good enough for A tier because I think he's missing a little bit of that ability to finish a fight with his wrestling. You know, he can manipulate the body position of people. He can drag them down to the canvas over and over again for 25 minutes. I get it. But he's not taking the back. He's not rear naked choking. He got the Kimura on Jeremy Stephens, but other than that, what really else has he done in the grappling department? You know what I mean? We ain't seeing too many submissions, and when he hits a brick wall like Beneil Dariush, a guy who's got equal wrestling to him and that jiu-jitsu advantage, he starts having some trouble. You know what I mean? So I feel like I'm going to put Mateusz Gamrot at the top of B tier. He out-wrestled guys like Arman Tsarukyan, but he's not quite in that A tier or S tier level. But he's at lightweight, so he's definitely one of the better ones. I'm putting him at B tier. We move on to someone else in this video who is Henry Cejudo. Oh, Olympic gold medal? No. Quadruple C, because he's in C tier. Triple C and C tier. I'm sorry. When has this guy ever used his grappling effectively in the UFC? He got a couple of inside trips on Demetrius Johnson where he had a weight advantage. He didn't even win that fight. He got gifted a bad decision, let's be real. Got a couple of inside trips against Demetrius Johnson. I know he has an Olympic gold medal. I know, but we've had Olympians come into the UFC. Like Yoel Romero was a great example of this. Great takedown defense. Didn't let people get him to the mat, I understand. But Derek Brunson was out wrestling him in their fight. You know what I mean? And Yoel Romero never really showed an ability to just ragdoll someone to the ground and beat them with grappling. You know? Henry Cejudo's in that similar thing, and they're both Olympians as well, so maybe it's in the style of that. Henry Cejudo couldn't get down Dominic Cruz, tried 4 times. Couldn't get down Marlon Moraes until the 3rd round, tried over and over again. Demetrius Johnson, 2 inside trips, did nothing with it whatsoever other than stay in full guard. Demetrius Johnson got back up. He did no damage in those positions. So, yes, he's got great wrestling. No one's going to take this man down anytime soon. Maybe Aljo, who knows? Maybe Aljo will be able to get the back. That's where the other parts of grappling come in. This isn't who has the best wrestling in the UFC. This is who has the best and most effective grappling in the promotion. Jiu-jitsu, any form of grappling you want to include, combined together, and how effective is it in the cage? I see Gamrot doing better things in the grappling department than I see Cejudo doing. It's a fact. Dude couldn't take down Benavidez, couldn't keep him down for a second. Only person I've ever seen him out wrestle is Sergio Pettis, a kickboxer. That's all I got to say. We move on to someone else in this video who is Jailton Almeida, the lab experiment. I'm going to put him at D tier. Great grappler, we just don't know the level yet. That's the problem. A lot of these fighters is going to be like, we just don't know the level. So I know I'm going to have to put him in the video because he deserves that respect for what he's doing to people with his grappling. Beat a Dagestani guy on the Contender Series. Has been doing amazing work so far. Just beat Shamil Abdurakhimov. But they're all old men. We don't know how good they are yet. Does he do this to Curtis Blades? Probably not. You know? Does he do it to Tom Aspinall? Probably not. So we don't quite know yet. That's the issue that I'm facing with Jailton Almeida. So I'm going to put him at D tier. Plus, he's at heavyweight and light heavyweight. Typically worse divisions for grappling than the lower divisions for grappling. So I'm going to keep him at D tier for now. Jailton Almeida, we'll see where he goes in the future. See if he can prove himself to be a bit higher up on this tier list. We move on to another person in this tier list who's going to be Aljamain Sterling. I'm putting Aljamain Sterling at B tier. That's what I'm doing with Aljamain Sterling. I'm putting him at B tier. Quality grappler. And I think he's one of the top guys at B tier as well. So I'm putting him near Mateus Gamrot. Very, very good grappler. Took the back of Piotr Jan multiple times. I know the Dillashaw fight was whatever, but he out-wrestled him in that fight, you know, and he's used his wrestling. Like, does Henry Cejudo finish Corey Sandhagen? The Corey Sandhagen that showed up against Aljamain Sterling in the first round with his grappling. He doesn't. He probably tries to take down Sandhagen a bunch of times in that fight. Fails a bunch of times. And tries to get the finish on the feet because he can't take him down. It's just a fact. And it's how Cejudo's been fighting recently in his career. Throughout his entire career. So, yeah, I'm putting Aljo at B tier. I'm putting Aljo's grappling for MMA above Cejudo's. It's far more effective. Far, far more effective. I don't see Cejudo finishing Piotr Jan on the ground. Or getting his back at any moment. So I'm going to put Aljo above him. And I'm putting Cejudo down at C tier. But he's the top of C tier. So he can be the king of that. We move on to someone else in this video who's going to be Piotr Jan. I'm putting him below Cejudo at C tier. Very solid grappling. Great scrambles that he has. He's patient when someone is on his back, like the level of Aljamain Sterling. We've seen how Sandhagen got submitted so easily in that fight. But Jan, very patient in those positions. Very good counter scrambles. Magomedov wasn't able to out-grapple him too well in their fight all the way back in the regional scene. And he's still young. Cejudo, Aljo, they're getting old. They're leaving their prime. Piotr Jan's entering his prime era. That's a scary thought. So I'm going to put this guy at C tier. He's just missing the offensive grappling. Sure, Cejudo doesn't have the offensive grappling either, but I think he'd be able to do more on the ground than Jan did to O'Malley. You know what I mean? Even though O'Malley was cheating over and over again in that fight. The takedown defense and the scrambles alone, got to put Piotr Jan in C tier. He's a solid fundamental grappler for MMA. Just doesn't use it too offensively. We move on to another person in this video who is... I'm putting him at D tier. Look how pale he is. Jesus. Gingers. Unite. I'm putting him at D tier. We just don't know. We've had a bunch of wrestlers come into... Don't talk to me about Bo Nickal yet. I need to see it first. I saw a lot of people coming out and saying, Khamzat Chimaev gets ragdolled by Bo Nickal. Bo Nickal beats him. Chill. Everybody chill. Right now is what we're going to do. We're going to collectively chill out on Bo Nickal. Very good grappling fundamentals. Very good credentials for wrestling coming into the UFC. He's beat a few guys that aren't good on the Contender Series. Let's just say it how it is. They aren't good fighters and he beat them. Well done. Showed a little bit of jiu-jitsu. What happens when he just ends up in full guard on the ground with someone, man? What happens when he's wrestled them and he's not finishing them just by taking them down over and over again? You know? We saw Covington come into the UFC. Wrestle. Wale Alves guillotines him. The jiu-jitsu element in MMA makes it completely different. It's not about how good of a wrestler you are. It's how good of a grappler you are. And the best people with the good wrestling credentials that came into the UFC, they incorporated the other parts of grappling to make them so effective. Aljamain Sterling is a prime example of this. Bo Nickal, we just don't know. We don't know what happens when it gets into the third round and he's taken them down over and over again and he's done a bit of damage to secure those rounds, and all of a sudden the guy's on bottom in half guard or the guy's on bottom in full guard and he's throwing up triangles and Bo Nickal's a little bit tired. He's taken some knees to the body in the clinch. This is what we need to find out. So for right now, I'm putting him at D tier. I think he's going to be very good. I'm just worried we may see him run into a guy who's got that jiu-jitsu ability and got that patience to threaten some things whenever Bo Nickal's going for a takedown. And maybe he runs into a little bit of problems. So he's definitely going to have to develop the jiu-jitsu alongside rising up through the rankings in the UFC. So for right now, putting him at D tier, he's still one of the best grapplers already and he hasn't even made his debut. That's an honor for him to be on this video. Everyone in this video is a phenomenal grappler. We just don't know yet. Is he going to be able to finish decent UFC caliber fighters in the middleweight division? We just don't know. We move on to another fighter on the video who's going to be. I'm putting Khamzat Chimaev at A tier. I think he's really good. I think he's really, really good. I think style-wise, he has some kryptonites in terms of Whittaker. Whittaker is everything Chimaev is, but defensively. And I'm going to prioritize offense here in terms of how effective it is in the cage. Who's using their grappling to do good things. Defense, I'm going to, otherwise Jan would be further up. You know what I mean? If we're going to rate defense. Offensively, Khamzat Chimaev is top 3 grapplers in the UFC. He can get you down, he can beat you up when you're there, and he can submit you while you're there instantly as well. Dangerous, dangerous man. I think he would have out-grappled Gilbert Burns if he would have believed in himself and kept going. I think he feared that of Gilbert Burns and sort of fell in love with his striking after he dropped Burns with that jab. I think he would have gone. I think if he re-fought Burns, he would stick to the grappling and I think he would beat him. I really do believe that. Khamzat Chimaev has a nightmare-style matchup for him in Whittaker just because of the style of the grappling that they oppose each other with. But I still think he ragdolls Adesanya and Pereira, and that's saying something. You know? That is saying something. And I think he would ragdoll Adesanya and choke him out in the first round and make him look like a slightly better version of Kevin Holland. I really do. So I'm going to put Khamzat Chimaev at A tier. I think he's one of the best in the game right now in grappling. We move on to another fighter on this video who is... Is this someone? No, that's the whole thing. Tom Aspinall. I guess I'm putting him at C tier. I'm putting Tom Aspinall at C tier for now. We don't quite know yet how he does against other grapplers. How does he grapple with Curtis Blades? We just don't know yet. But in terms of his slickness and jiu-jitsu on the ground right now, what he did to Volkov can't be ignored. It can't be ignored because Curtis Blades took Volkov 5 rounds. And if anything, it was a more improved version of Volkov that Aspinall fought. He improved since that Blades fight. You know? And we've had other heavyweight grapplers try and deal with Volkov and they just couldn't. Verdum. Volkov was scrambling around with him on the ground, ended up getting back up a bunch of times and eventually finishing Verdum. And that was when Verdum still kind of had it and wasn't completely out of his prime yet. So I'm going to put Tom Aspinall at C tier. What he did to Alexander Volkov just can't be ignored. And then there was also that switch that he hit. I know he was an unranked, terrible, fat heavyweight in Bordeaux. But it was like, I don't like it on the feet. Boom, takedown, beat him up on the ground, finish. Within seconds, he's finished him. I don't really like the stand-up against Arlovski right now. Boom, takedown, drive him into the canvas, rear naked choke, it's in, it's done. No one does that to Arlovski. So I'm putting him at C tier. But he's still a heavyweight, so he can't be higher than that. We move on to someone else in this video who's going to be Belal Muhammad. I'm putting Belal at B tier, man. Dude's using his grappling very effectively, defensively and offensively, and that's something that a lot of these other people in this video can't do. When it's needed offensively, Belal gets it done offensively. Am I wrong? He's been doing the thing recently. He's been doing his thing recently, and he did better than Gilbert Burns did on the ground with Wonderboy. All I'm going to say, offensively anyway. Burns really didn't do much on the ground with Wonderboy and barely scaved out a decision based on control time and back of the headshots. Belal Muhammad was beating up Wonderboy on the ground, taking his back, and almost had him finished by TKO on multiple occasions. I think he has very underrated grappling, and not to mention, defense is there as well. So he's got to be B tier. He's not the best of B tier. Maybe, to be honest, Outside of the first few of each tier, don't pay too much attention because they're just going to be an odd jumble. Maybe this is like the worst of B tier in terms of Belal Muhammad, but I think you got to put him at B tier. Defense is there. We've seen that against Damian Maia. We've seen it against Sean Brady. Just shakes off those takedowns like they're nothing. And offense is there as well. Took down Luke Hay when he needed to. Took down Wonderboy where he needed to. And he just couldn't quite get down Leon at one moment. So I'm going to put Belal in there. He started to improve his grappling over the past few years. Putting him in the mix at B tier. We move on to another fighter on the video who is Deiveson Figueiredo, D tier. Decent grappling, not the best, a little bit sloppy at times, leave himself vulnerable. His style's a bit goofy, he has a bit of a weird style based on like beach culture in Brazil. I can't even remember what it's called, but a little bit goofy. The scrambles, they work, but I think they're ultimately based on how strong he is for the division. And I think if Figueiredo was a regular-sized flyweight who didn't have those massive strength advantages, I think he'd be a lot easier exposed on the ground. All I'm going to say. We move on. Let's start speeding through a few. Ilia Topuria. Putting him at D tier as well. Haven't seen a massive amount of ability offensively. Of course, after knocking down Bryce Mitchell, he was able to sort of stuff a takedown, get on top and get the arm triangle. So he's very good. Everyone in this video is very good. D tier, C tier, B tier, they're being separated by millimeters of skill. Ilia Topuria is in this video for a reason. He's a very good grappler. Please, Georgians, don't hunt me down. He's very good. We just haven't seen offensive grappling from him used against top-level opponents where he's ragdolling them. And we have from other people in this video. Getting takedowns against top-level competition and being able to establish control. We haven't seen that from Ilia Topuria. The best we've seen him do to a person offensively with his grappling is Youssef Zalal. Seriously. Great takedown defense, though. And for that, he's in the video. We'll see how much further he can go over the grappling afterwards. His hands are more his deadliest weapon. We move on to another part of this video. Another fighter in this video who is Ricky Simón. I'm putting him at D tier. He's very good at grappling. I think he's improved recently. But we're going to have to see that. He can out-wrestle the guys below him in the rankings in the bantamweight division. He's a bantamweight, so naturally I do like his grappling very well. He beat Merab by submission. Was Merab out-grappling him for the majority of that fight? Yes, but still he hung with Merab. In round 2, he was stuffing some takedowns, getting his own takedowns on Merab. Rewatched that fight. It was pretty competitive in round 2. Round 1 and 3, Merab was having his way, pushing the pace. But Ricky Simón couldn't quite out-grapple Rob Font. Couldn't get what he wanted from those positions. Ended up getting hurt on the feet quite badly in that fight because he was resorting on his grappling too much. So I'm going to go with him at D tier. Very good grappler. Not one of the best, but still amongst the top-level grapplers in the UFC. We move on to another fighter in this video who is Arman Tsarukyan. I'm putting him at B tier. I think the lightweights are so good at grappling. How he hung with Islam Makhachev. Got to give him some points for that. How he hung with Mateusz Gamrot. I think he's a millimeter behind Gamrot in terms of grappling level. In fact, I'd argue that although Gamrot's scrambles are better and his hustle's better and maybe his cardio was a bit better in that 5-rounder, Arman arguably should have won. But in the grappling, Mateusz won. I get it. But Arman's control time is better. His ability to finish with the grappling is better. We saw him just destroy Joel Alvarez on the ground. You know what I mean? And he also was able to do what he did to Damir Ismagulov. I would worry about Mateusz Gamrot against Damir if he wasn't able to get off damage and was just sort of like Damir was getting back up and they were back on the feet. I'd worry about Gamrot in that fight. I don't worry about Arman. Showed great ability, took the back, established control in certain positions. We don't see Gamrot doing that too often. So I'm still putting him in the same tier, just a little bit behind Gamrot in terms of his hustle and his pace. We move on to another person in this video who is Curtis Blades. I'm putting him at C tier. He's around the Aspinall level. Sure, you can say, oh, well, based on the Volkov fight, Aspinall's better than Curtis Blades. Sure, you can say that. But Curtis Blades has shown that he can out-grapple a lot of opponents in the division. And I would say I would trust the takedown defense, just saying it, of Curtis Blades more than I would trust the takedown defense of Tom Aspinall against Jon Jones. That's all I'm going to say about it. So I think they're on a similar level. but we don't know because that fight would have told us the answer eventually if it wasn't a first round KO, which is what it was going to look like. We just don't know yet. So I'm putting him in the same tier. Curtis Blades, top level heavyweight grappler. Can't go above C tier because he's one of the higher weight class guys and they're just typically not as good. We move on to someone else in this video who is Beneil Dariush. I'm putting Beneil third place. I'm leaving a space for second. Well, fourth, not third, because S tier is number 1. I'm putting him here in third place. Beneil Dariush is a hell of a grappler. It's time he got his respect. The way he shut down Gamrot's game was crazy. I've watched that fight a few times over. I was shocked. I thought Gamrot was going to beat him. You know, he beat Tony Ferguson very similar to the way Charles Oliveira did, who I think is another top-level grappler in MMA. Top-level grappler. He beat Tony Ferguson very similar to the way Charles Oliveira done it. I know it's Tony Ferguson, but still. Similar to the level of Oliveira, the way he did it. Close submission attempt that arguably could have been stopped, but Tony toughed it out. Controlled him for the rest of the fight pretty much. He's out-grappled Carlos Diego Ferreira. He got the triangle armbar on Drew Dober at one moment. He had the back of Drakkar Klose, would have had a rear naked choke in that. He's like doing stuff with his grappling against lightweights. Would have choked out Drakkar Klose if Drakkar Klose wasn't snapping his fingers illegally in that fight. Rewatch it. Crazy situation. Drakkar Klose was cheating. But what he did to Mateusz Gamrot, I've got to put him in A tier. He's in the top 5, I think. I think he's in the top 5, and I think he's probably, in terms of the grappling department, the biggest threat to Islam Makhachev there is in the lightweight division. And the lightweight division are best. We move on to another person in this video who is Jon Jones. I'm putting him at C tier. I'm going to put him above Blades and Aspinall because people are going to have a conniption. I'm going to say the same thing I said about Cejudo. Jon Jones in his prime, on his come-up, probably would have been B or A tier. Probably would have been. What happened? Couldn't take down Santos. Couldn't take down Reyes and keep him down. Took down Smith a few times. Did nothing with it whatsoever. Only got down Gustafsson after he groin-shotted him brutally. Great takedown defense. But I'm going to compare him directly. I'm going to directly compare him with Petr Yan. And you're going to accept it right now. Great takedown defense. Amazing takedown defense. In fact, Jones has better takedown defense than Petr Yan. In terms of offense, Sean O'Malley is a better Dominic Reyes. Young, hyped, up-and-comer, knocking people out. Hasn't really beaten too many guys at the top level. He's been raced into a title shot against a very good fighter. And Jon Jones and Petr Yan represent the same example. Jones couldn't do anything on the ground. Yan did better. I know it's bantamweight and they're way better in general at light heavyweight, but I'm putting Jon Jones at C. Dude don't do nothing offensively with his grappling nowadays. He might prove me wrong against Gane, in which case he might earn a position at the bottom of B tier. As of right now, I can't watch you struggle for 25 minutes to take down Dominic Reyes, struggle to take down Thiago Santos and not do it, and struggle with Anthony Smith, although controlling him, doing absolutely nothing with it, and expect me to put you in the likes of Aljamain Sterling, Bilal Muhammad, Armand Saruki, and Mateusz Gamrot, who are actively winning fights against top contenders using their grappling. In the case of Aljo, defending his belt using grappling. Can't put you up there with them. Just sorry. It's just how it is. As of right now, he ain't got it no more. In his prime, different story. What he was doing to DC in their first fight, different story. As of right now, dude don't got the wrestling ability anymore. I think he's lost it a little bit. Maybe lost it with the sauce. Who knows? We move on to another person in this video who is Kamaru Usman. I'm putting him at B tier. Lower down in the B tier area because he's a welterweight. Of course, if he were to grapple some of the lightweights and bantamweights, he would beat them, but we're doing it pound for pound. We just don't see finishing ability from Usman on the ground. This is one problem. Very good grappling, can out-grapple Leon Edwards for 15, 16 minutes of a 25-minute fight. Very effective. We just see him shy away from a Gilbert Burns. We see him shy away from the grappling in Colby Covington's fight as well, in the fight that he had with him. So I'm not going to put him above B tier. He doesn't have that finishing ability with the rear naked choke or the ground and pound finish so far in his career. He's just able to control people with his size, strength, cardio, conditioning, and obviously that wrestling skill as well. So I'm going to put him at B tier. He reminds me of like a welterweight Gamrot, but obviously way less impressive looking because, you know, I'm going to put him above Beneil. Let's be real. Way less impressive looking because he's not a lightweight and he's not got that ability. We move on to another person in this video who is Colby Covington. I'm putting him here. I'm putting him below Beneil. Beneil's a lot more offensive. Colby would do better wrestling-wise to get people to the ground, but Beneil's a lot more effective with his grappling once he gets people down. Covington can't do anything on the ground to people. Usman's the same problem. They can't do anything on the ground to people, and maybe welterweight just has better wrestlers in general than the other divisions, and that's why. But I bet you this, Covington ain't finishing Kevin Holland in round 1 on the ground. Neither is Usman. Neither is Belal Muhammad. I'm promising you that. They ain't ragdolling him like Chimaev did and finishing him in the first round. Not happening. They're probably going to take him to a decision. Frustrating 5 rounds where people are like, man, Kevin really needs to work on his grappling. They're not going to do what Chimaev did to him. Simple as that. And that's where the difference is at welterweight in the grappling department, in my opinion. So I'm putting him here at B. We move on to someone else in this video who is Pedro Munoz, dangerous bantamweight. Not really got the ability to get things to the ground. But if you shoot on him, you're done. Pretty much. You're absolutely finished. Dangerous, dangerous submissions off of his back and off of the takedown threat as well. Watch out for him. We move on to someone else in this video who is Alejandro Pantoja. I'm putting him at C tier. Really good scrambles. Putting people where he wants them. Simple as that. He's putting people where he wants them. Does Pantoja want a first round rear naked choke? Sorry, top 10 contender, top 5 contender. Get on the ground. Let me on your back. I'm choking you out in 10 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute. That's what he's been doing to people recently. He choked out Brandon Moreno twice, I believe, now in his career. Both by rear naked choke. Maybe one by decision, one by rear naked choke. But he has choked out Moreno before. And I think he's on a different level grappling-wise. He used to have a problem getting people to the ground. But now he's taken that Aljo style of grappling to where he's only taken them down to reveal their back. And that's where he's dangerous. So I'm going to put Alejandro Pantoja at C tier. I really am. Dangerous, dangerous dude. We move on to another person in this video who is Merab. I'm putting him at B tier. Again, no ability jiu-jitsu-wise on the ground, but the wrestling is what it is. If Merab wants to manhandle you at bantamweight, he's probably going to do it. I don't think he'll beat Yan because I think the elbows in the clinch and the moments at range are going to be dangerous for him because he is reckless and not the best at range on the feet. But in terms of his pace, his offensive grappling, he's world class and he's at bantamweight. So that gives him bonus points as well because the bantamweight division's no joke, one of the best skilled divisions in the UFC. I think it's the bantamweight, featherweight, lightweight mix right now that we're seeing in the UFC. So I'm going to put Merab Dvalishvili at B tier. Very good, although I hate him and want to see him suffer. We move on to someone else in this video who is Leon Edwards, C tier. Similar problem to a Jones, Cejudo, Yan, but way lower down, which is why he's at this end of C tier. Can grapple, can get people to the ground, isn't very effective with it when he does. That's the problem we see. We saw it, Nate Diaz is dangerous on the ground on his back, and Leon was able to neutralize him, take his back, beat him up with elbows, get half guard on top with him and control him on the ground. We've seen Leon Edwards take down RDA, who's no slouch on the ground. Very good grappler. So I have to put Leon Edwards somewhere on this list. He took down Usman in the first round, had a rear naked choke. Do I think he's a better grappler than Usman? I don't, but he has the ability to make stuff happen. He just doesn't have the ability to close. And that's the problem with Leon Edwards. But I'm going to put him at C tier, below the Usmans and the other welterweight grapplers. But his takedown defense is very good, but I'm kind of favoring offense here. Sorry. We move on to someone else in this video, who is Bryce Mitchell, putting him at the bottom of D tier. In fact, I'm just going to put Bo Nickal at D tier. Hopefully the people that already disliked for me putting Bo Nickal's pale ass at D tier are going to take away that and say, oh, now I'm okay with it. Who knows? Bryce Mitchell, D tier, got all his takedown stuffed against Ilia Topuria. And Edson Barboza's always had problems with grapplers. You just have to be a competent grappler to beat Edson Barboza. Bryce Mitchell's very good, which is why he's on this video, but, you know, before the Barboza fight, who was it that he was out grappling? Philly gave him problems. In round 2, Philly gave him problems. Even in round 3, it was a close competitive fight that Bryce Mitchell got the better of based on control time. So although Bryce Mitchell's good at grappling, he ain't destroying in the featherweight division, and he just had all his takedowns stuffed by Ilya and got subbed, so I can't put him above Ilya on this list. We move on. Alexander Romanov, dangerous heavyweight grappler for a round. That's the problem with him. I see him and Jailton Almeida at the same level, waiting to prove if they can go above and beyond to the next step. Now, fair enough, Romanov was fighting at altitude against Tybura, and everyone gassed, and he maybe should have got a 10-8 in the first, and it should have been a draw. But either way, I think him and Jailton Almeida are very similar. Let's see if they can get into the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th with these more experienced and good grapplers at the top of heavyweight of the heavyweight division. So I'm putting Romanov at D tier at the very end. We move on to someone else in this video who is Du Bronx, Charles Oliveira, going at A tier. Just above Beneil Dariush, below Khamzat Chimaev is what I'm going to say. Very good submission ability, but we've seen people do well against him in the grappling department, including Islam Makhachev. You know what I mean? If this was before the Makhachev fight, I'd maybe have put him above Chimaev at A tier, and he'd be the 2nd best. Or honestly, I might have put him above Makhachev because I thought he was going to win. So, honestly, yeah, I probably would have put him at S tier if this was before the Makhachev fight. So, I'm putting him at A tier, though. I just feel like he would run into some trouble with Beneil on the ground. I think he would beat him if they were both fresh and had a grappling match, a jiu-jitsu tournament, and a grappling match at like Cage Fury, whatever they do when they do the grappling tournament, Fury Pro Grappling. I think Charles would win, but it's close. It's very close. I'm going to put him at A tier. Give him that respect. One of the most dangerous grapplers in the UFC. He's in the top 5 for sure. We move on. It's just that when we see Charles on the ground a lot of times nowadays, he's injured or rocked. You know, that's the problem. When Charles is fresh, sure, he can't always get people to the ground, and that's usually been his problem. But, you know, he can choke out Gaethje. As soon as he's on the ground and it's on his terms, dangerous. Dangerous, dangerous, dangerous. There's a boxer who said that. Can't remember his name. Someone will mention it. But yeah, dangerous guy, Charles Oliveira. If he's on his terms and he's got you on the ground, you ain't surviving. Simple as that. But the only problem with Oliveira recently is we see him on the ground when he's been dropped. And it's like hard to gauge just how good he really is on the ground if every time we see him there, he's concussed. You know what I mean? So I'm putting him at A tier. We move on to someone else in this video who is Umar. Putting him at C tier. We just don't know yet, and I'm telling you this right now. Phenomenal grappler. Could go on with development to get to B tier, and could be one of the top bantamweight grapplers like Aljo or Merab. I'll just say this. Aljamain Sterling submits Nate Maness in the first round with a rear naked choke. Umar took him to a decision. All I'm going to say to differentiate the two of them. Umar's got good stand-up. I get it. He will be at the top of bantamweight. I really do believe that. But as of right now, I know what Aljo would do. I know what Aljo would do to Nate Maness. He would take him down and sub him in a round. I really believe that. And Umar took him 3. So in terms of finishing ability, I got to go with Aljamain Sterling. That's what I got to go with. So, yeah, I'm putting Umar at C tier. Probably will in time improve. He's so young. Probably will in time improve and jump to B tier. And maybe if he becomes champ, we're talking about him at A tier. But as of right now, he's more of like the striking Nurmagomedov. But his grappling's very good, of course. So I'm still putting him in the video and putting him at C tier. We move on to someone else in this video who is Gilbert Burns. We're putting him at B tier. Very, very good grappler. In fact, Usman, all I'm going to say is this. Don't take this order too seriously. But all I'm going to say is this. Usman's done a lot of grappling training with Gilbert Burns. And Usman, the wrestler, who did a lot of grappling training with Gilbert Burns, wanted no problems with Gilbert Burns on the ground. That's all I'm going to say. I know Chimaev didn't either, but Chimaev was like he got caught up in the stand-up fight. I think if he revisits that fight, he does take it to the ground. And he still went for it anyway. Usman knows if he's better than Burns or not on the ground. If he was better than Burns on the ground, he would have followed him to the ground. Usman got rocked, and he was the one who wanted to keep it standing. All I'm going to say. He got rocked by Burns badly, and he was the one who wanted to keep it standing, and Burns was the one on the ground. I'm going to put him up there. I think Burns is one of the better ones, and now he's using it more offensively as well. So I think if Covington, Beneil, or Usman get stuck on the ground with Burns for a long period of time, they're getting subbed. So I'm going to put Gilbert Burns at B tier. We move on to someone else in this video who is Khamzat Chimaev. I'm putting him at C tier. Very good grappler. We just don't know yet. Solid performance against Dan Ige. Can he do it against the top contenders in that division? I'm not sure he can. I'm not going to say he can't, but it's just really hard to say that he immediately can at the moment because the featherweights, as you rise up the division, have increasingly good takedown defense. And that's often what they sort of like pride themselves in as a division, right? There's sort of been a division for a long time of great takedown defense with Holloway, with Calvin Kattar, opponents like that at the top. If I watch Khamzat Chimaev ragdoll a Korean Zombie, ragdoll a Calvin Kattar, if he comes back looking healthy, maybe I'll talk differently, but as of right now, we don't know yet. I'm putting him at C tier. I'm putting him above Ilya. That's a compliment. One of the best in the UFC. We move on to something else. Shavkat Rakhmonov, putting him at the bottom of B tier. Putting Shavkat Rakhmonov at the bottom of B tier. Welterweight's a great grappling division. Subbed Neil Magny. Made it look pretty easy. Didn't make it look as easy as Burns. Made it look easy though. I'm putting him at B tier. I think he's going to go on to do real well. I just don't think he's going to be able to beat the Covingtons, the Usmans. Maybe on the feet, but in the grappling, I don't think he beats the very peak level welterweights in the UFC. So I'm going to put him on there. And also, I'd put him around the Leon level, but his offense is a bit better, I think. I think his offense, compared to Leon, is a lot better. And I don't think Leon, if he does want to take Magny down, will submit him that easily in their fight or have him close to being submitted at the end of round one. I think he'd win a decision against Magny if he wanted to try and grapple. So, again, offense is being favoured. But Shavkat, I think, has got to be at the bottom of B tier, close to C tier. We move on to someone else in this video who is who else is at B tier? Whittaker. Whittaker don't really have the offense though. But Ortega, where do I go with him? Because the fact is, if any of them are in Ortega's guard, Covington is in Ortega's guard, Belal's there, even Burns, I'd worry about him. Well, they're massive compared to him though, now I'm thinking about it, so maybe never mind, but I think Ortega would submit Aljo in a jiu-jitsu match. You know what I mean? Like, if Aljo tried to take Ortega's back, I think he'd fail and get subbed. You know? I think if Arman tried to sit in full guard and beat up Ortega, he might get armbarred or triangled. I'm going to put Ortega at the very bottom of A tier. In fact, I'm going to put Ortega between tiers. He's going to hide behind Whittaker and peer over the top. Like he's on Whittaker's shoulders trying to get to A tier. But he's not quite at A tier. Oh, I wish he was behind some of these people. Can I put him backwards? There's like 60 things on page. So I'm going to have to click this a bunch of times. There we go. He's behind Arman Tsarukyan, peering, trying to get into A tier. But we don't know yet, because his ability to get things to the ground in the first place aren't the best. But he is a featherweight and he's at the top. And if anyone's on the ground with him in that division, they're done. Unless they're Volk. We move on. Sergey Spivak. Sergey Spivak. He's a great grappler. I'll put him at C tier. He's a great grappler. I'm putting him at C tier. Amazing grappler in the UFC. Showed it against Derek Lewis. And just ragdolled him, man. Greco ragdolled him. Hip toss. Head and arm throw. Chucked him around like a toy and beat him up badly. subbing him eventually. Sergey Spivak has shown great improvement as a heavyweight grappler, so I'm putting him above the Romanovs and the Jailton Almeidas because they've been doing that not as impressively to way lower skilled grapplers and fighters in the heavyweight division. So Sergey Spivak at C tier. Not quite as good as Aspinall, but up there with the top dogs at heavyweight for sure in terms of grappling. We move on. Volkanovski. I'm putting him at C tier as well. I have to shrink his massive head quickly. I'm going to put him at C tier as well. Volkanovski. Very good defensively. All-round grappler. Got to be at a C tier. He's one of the best in the game. I think this is everyone in the video. I just want to reiterate again before I crown the champion. Everyone in this is a phenomenal grappler in the UFC. These are the best grapplers in the UFC. Fuck Ryan Hall. He's a nerd. Imanari rolling like a spaz on the ground. These are the best grapplers in the UFC. End of discussion. Some of them we don't know about yet. Imbo, Nickal, Jailton, Almeida. Topuria. You know what I mean? Some of them we don't know about yet. Some of them used to be great or have credentials to be great, like Jon Jones, but don't use it at all. And we don't see it, and it's never effective for them. Some of them we haven't seen it used against the elite of the elite in Aspinall and Blades. I'm going to put the champion, Makhachev, at S tier, of course. You knew it was coming. Makhachev's the best. He subbed Oliveira, you know. Got to put him up there. And if he subs Volk, beats him up on the ground, finishes him, just claims that crown easily and stakes his claim. I just farted at the end of the video. I was saving that for 40 minutes. Going to be a stinky one. Either way, Makhachev's at S tier. I think he's the best grappler in the UFC. Do I think he could lose to Chimaev? Yeah, but there's a massive size difference. It's not what it's about. Pound for pound. Makhachev's doing his thing as champ with his grappling skill in that division. So I'm going to put him at S tier. But everyone else, including Ortega's peering eyes over the top of Arman Tsarukyan, I think is ranked accordingly. Heavier weight divisions are just worse than lighter weight divisions. Sorry. I know there's going to be people saying, Jon Jones at C tier? Shut up and get over it. You ain't taking a guy down for fucking 4 years. Neither is Cejudo. See you later. Goodbye. Toodle pip.